Okay, so we were listening to this stock market podcast the other day,
Mm.
and something they talked about really caught our attention.
Yeah.
It was about this whole thing with wires and cables,
Okay.
but specifically these two big companies in India, KEI Industries and UltraTech.
UltraTech.
Yeah,
But
UltraTech.
the cement.
Exactly, the cement giant. And that's kind of the thing, right? Like, what are they doing messing around with wires and cables?
Yeah, you don't exactly think of cement and electrical wiring as like, going together.
No, not really. So that's what we're going to do today. Like, let's unpack this whole thing, figure out what's going on, what their game plan is,
Yeah.
and especially what it might mean for investors.
Absolutely. Yeah, because whenever a company as big as UltraTech makes a move like this, it can really shake things up.
For sure. So let's start with KEI Industries, right? Kind of set the stage. They've been around for a while, pretty well-established name in this whole cables and wires world.
Yeah, and they've got a really wide range of products, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, everything. I mean, you think about those massive high-voltage cables, the kind they use in, like, power grids.
Yeah.
To make those.
Yeah.
But then also, like, the regular wiring you'd find in your house, just your everyday stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of got it all.
Yep. And they've been doing really well financially, too. Solid track record.
Okay, so that's KEI. Now bring on the new kid on the block, UltraTech Cement.
Yeah.
They're starting to produce cables.
Yeah, and this is what I think is so interesting. You've got this huge conglomerate,
Yeah.
UltraTech. They're part of the Aditya Birla Group,
Right.
which is just this massive, massive company. And they just decide to jump into a whole different sector.
It's kind of bulls, right?
Totally. And it just gets you thinking, why cables?
What's the strategy?
Exactly.
Well, you'd think KEI would be at least a little bit worried about this, right? I mean, having this giant company suddenly show up on their turf.
Yeah, for sure you'd think so.
But everything we've read says that KEI's leadership is, like, totally chill about it. Seem completely unfazed. So is that, like, are they just putting on a brave face? Or do they really have some secret weapon?
I mean, it's a good question. Because, on the surface, KEI does have some real strengths here.
Right, like what?
Well, they've got that established brand, right? People know KEI, they trust their products, and they've built up a really strong network of distributors over the years. Those relationships are valuable.
Yeah.
It's not easy for a newcomer to just come in and replicate that overnight, even if they're UltraTech.
Okay, that makes sense. So how about UltraTech then? What do we think their play is here?
Well, it doesn't look like they're trying to go head-to-head with KEI right away, at least not initially. Their early focus seems to be more on what they call captive consumption.
Okay, what's that?
So basically, they're going to be using their own cables for their own projects. Within the Aditya Birla Group, they've got tons of construction going on all the time.
Oh, right. Of course.
So it's like they're kind of supplying themselves first.
Right.
It lets them sort of, dip their toes in the water, get some experience, without going right after KEI's main customers.
Smart. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, what all this means for people who might be thinking about investing in either of these companies.
Yeah, okay.
Like, let's say you're holding some KEI stock right now. Should you be freaking out about UltraTech?
I mean, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, right?
Right.
No doubt about that. But, KEI's strategy seems to be working pretty well for them, focusing on those high-margin products. They're not just competing on price. They've got that brand loyalty. It's almost like, think about Apple versus, like, a generic phone.
Yeah.
People are willing to pay more for Apple because they know the quality, they trust the brand.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
KEI's kind of got that same thing going on.
Okay, so what about UltraTech then? From like an investor's perspective, is this move into cable something worth paying attention to?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, UltraTech has a pretty clear history of, expanding, diversifying.
They're not afraid to shake things up. And we've seen how aggressive they can be when they enter a new market. Like when they launched their paints division.
Yeah, right.
They basically just went in and undercut everyone on price. They gained market share super fast.
Wow.
So the question is, will they do the same thing with cables?
Interesting.
If they do, things could get really interesting really fast.
So for our listeners, what stands out to you in all of this? Are you surprised by UltraTech's move into cables?
I think what's really fascinating is this idea that we're seeing more and more of these big companies, these conglomerates, moving into these totally unrelated sectors.
Yeah, like it's not just about sticking to what you know anymore.
Right, exactly. And it makes you wonder, what's next? Like, what other industry is going to get this kind of shakeup?
Yeah, it's like the lines are blurring everywhere.
Absolutely.
It's definitely something to keep in mind, whether you're an investor or just someone who's, interested in how the business world is changing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more stories like this.
Yeah, see you next time.
See ya.